Good morning, everybody. We're just going to wait a couple of extra minutes to give people who would like to participate but might be caught up in another meeting the opportunity to join us right from the beginning. So I anticipate our starting in under 5 minutes, and we should have no problem getting through the material in the allotted hour. So thanks for your patience.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to say a few words on behalf of the Southeastern Museums Conference. My name is Zinnia Willits. I am the brand new Executive Director of SEMC. I've been on the job for a little over 2 months now. And we are so excited to continue to partner with others to bring virtual programming to our membership. And I'm so thankful today to Andrew Feinberg and his team from TimeLooper. They conceptualized this, this topic for virtual field trips. I think we can all agree that that's pretty timely these days. TimeLooper is a corporate partner of SEMC, and we are just thrilled to be able to bring this program to partner to be here today with all of you. Stay tuned for other programming that SEMC will be doing this fall with other corporate partners and among our membership. We put those out in the weekly e-news, and you can always find updates on our social media channels or on our website. And with that, I will turn it over to Andrew.
Thank you, Zinnia. Good morning, everybody. We are, I certainly speak on behalf of TimeLooper and our corporate partners when I say that we're thrilled to have you stewarding the boat through these turbulent waters in these times. You've done an incredible job. I know that you said that the job you signed up for is not the job that you have been undertaking over the last couple of months, and you've really done an incredible job, and we look forward to working with you and seeing the way that you shepherd the organization moving forward, because so far everything we've seen has been quite impressive. So thank you very much for all that you do, all of us. Good morning to all of you. I hope that I'm catching you not on vacation, because if so, I question your choices. I hope that you were able to have a relaxing holiday weekend to the extent possible. For those of you who have not heard of us before, TimeLooper, we are, as Zinnia said, a corporate partner of SEMC. We engage in digital experience design for our museum, historic site, and natural park partners across the US and around the world. And we have also been engaged with the education community for the last 6 years, helping to bring our institutional partners distance-based digital resources into the classrooms. So it was only natural when our institutional partners started reaching out to us as early as March for us to help them think about how to develop new digital connective tissue into their educational institution ecosystem. At the same time, what actually started happening is we started getting many inbound requests from schools saying that now that they could no longer take their students out of the classroom because they weren't even co-locating with their students in the classroom, could we help them think through what virtual field trips might look like for them through the fall? Given that we sit between all of you, the museum partners, and the educational institutions, we hope that we're well situated today to help provide you with some insights onto both how prepared your collective side of that equation is for the fall, what schools are looking for, and then some thoughts that we have both on how you can package and offer your insights, your resources, and your services to the educational community. And then also, of course, we're also happy to provide some insights on how TimeLooper might be able to help you, but that's independent of all of the other insights that we're going to provide. You're going to be hearing from 3 of us today. You're going to hear from me the most because I like to talk the most. You're also going to hear from Yeet, who's a colleague of mine, and Nick as well. We are all principals with TimeLooper, and hopefully we've had the opportunity to meet many of you at the SEMC conference in the past. And hopefully look forward to doing that again in the future. So let's start from the beginning, right? Life before COVID. As it relates to educational institutions, we know from our educational institutional partners that they came to your institutions because they wanted to facilitate resource immersion for their students in your environments. And not only did they want to completely immerse their students inside of your environments, that was half the equation. The other half of the equation was that they wanted their students to actually engage with your educators, your interpreters, and your docents, because your on-site education team are really experts at pushing the boundaries, at facilitating difficult conversations, at asking challenging questions that provoke thought and hopefully generate new insights for students in a way that a educator inside the classroom is not particularly well prepared to do. And so when we think about what it is that all of these institutions, these educational institutions value, it's both of these things. It's physically getting them outside of the classroom to allow them to focus on your environment. And then once they're there, it's about helping push the intellectual boundary. But this is what school year 2021, 2020, 2021 is going to look like if we're lucky, right? I mean, 6 feet of social distancing for sure is one way to think about it. But then beyond that, what if it's only 9 kids in the classroom and, you know, 18 kids at home on a rotating basis? What you can be sure of is that, you know, life after COVID is going to look different, and that for you as educational resources, as places of learning and as places of facilitation, you know, you're going to have to think differently about how life has been transformed overnight and what it's going to mean for how you achieve your educational mandate. We know that there's a lot of anxiety and uncertainty around whether school is going to be in person this fall. But we know, regardless of that, that there's virtually no probability of students coming to the vast majority of our museum institutional partner sites for on-site field trips, right? So public lands, museums, historic sites, state park systems, community park systems, national parks, they all have to now consider how digital engagement can be utilized and how they can take digital engagement as an approach, but ensure that it's compelling, it's scalable, and it's available in a way that is relevant, meaningful, and easily integrated into the workflow for the educational ecosystem, whether those students are at home learning on Zoom like we are today, or whether they're in the classroom. There's a whole lot of pieces to think through there. And traditionally, teachers have brought themselves to your institution to be part of that facilitated conversation. So the question today is, how are we going to translate that on-site experience into a meaningful distance-based engagement? So in order to do that, we are actually breaking up our 45 minutes together into 2 sort of distinct chapters. The first of which is what it is that we've learned about the market, because what we've learned might help you think differently about what it is that you want to offer. And then we also want to provide you with some guidance or some insights that we've been able to generate on how to build a virtual field trip. For those of you who are in the Deep South, you probably have 4 to 6 weeks to get this done. For those of you who are maybe a little bit further north in the South, you might have 7 to 8 weeks. So there's not a lot of time to get this done. And so we're really focused on giving you the insights you need to develop a very meaningful and valuable virtual experience that can be done easily and at no cost. So let's first start with our review of market research. But before we talk about the schools, I really want to talk about all of you. So if you were to sort of like look around our virtual meeting room today, you'd see that roughly 70% of the 56 SEMC members whose data I was able to aggregate before 10 a.m. this morning have not offered a virtual field trip before, and 30% have. And those numbers, of course, should be inverse. So 39 out of the 56 have not. So for those of you who've never offered a virtual field trip before, take great comfort in knowing that you're not alone. Now, that being said, the majority of you are certainly, the plurality of you are definitely offering virtual field trips this coming year. And then a large majority are either definitely or most likely facilitating virtual field trips this year. I was pleased to see that none of you who've signed up for this virtual webinar are definitely not offering virtual field trips, because if that was the case, I would strongly challenge how you choose utilizing your time. So that's in and of itself is reassuring. Then we also asked you all, okay, you haven't there are 17 of you who have offered virtual field trips, but many of you have actually offered digital resources before, which sort of gets to the question of, well, then what do you consider a virtual field trip to be? 2/3 of you have offered some sort of resource packages on your website oriented towards educational institutions. Only 7% of you have offered AR or VR. roughly a third of you have offered live video chat, and then a smaller portion of you have offered lesson plans and or video. So as you look at what resources you have offered in the past, it's useful to benchmark yourself against your peer institutions just to sort of see how you measure up in terms of your level of digital sophistication. Although, as you're going to see, the past is not necessarily indicative of the future in terms of how prepared you are or in terms of what the market values. By the way, I should have said, if you ask questions as we go, just type them into the Q&A bar, and we'll do our best to answer them, in the order at the time in which they're received. So this is some of the insight that we were able to generate from your SEMC membership in advance of today's webinar. I also now want to talk to you a little bit about the survey that we did aggregate. So we've engaged with hundreds and hundreds of educational institutions around the country over the last 6 years, and fully a third of them responded to our survey data. And we asked them to help generate insights for us to prepare you for the fall. And what you'll see here is that the majority of the respondents come from high school, with a third coming from middle school and a small percentage coming from elementary school. And the majority of respondents tend to be weighted more towards social sciences and less towards earth sciences. So with that, that's just some data. We, in this presentation, did not segment the data necessarily by these classifications, because we would have spent an hour just going over polling data. But we are happy to provide that to you at a later time if you see value in that. So with regards to these different segments, we then asked them, okay, if you can't bring people on site for this coming, if you can't go on site for an in-person field trip this year, how do you assess the value of a virtual field trip? And we were really surprised to see that many of your customers see a lot of value in a virtual field trip. I mean, this is heavily skewed to the right. And what you will see also is that, generally speaking, there's a stronger weighting towards a higher value for social sciences than earth sciences, which to me is not necessarily surprising. But even for earth sciences, you'll see that your customer base really does value a virtual field trip, and they do see it as effective. And so when thinking about whether you want to even make the investment to meet them and fill this need for this fall, know that you will have a receptive audience in that they value the product that you're putting out there. But beyond that, not only do they value it, not surprisingly, they're going to be doing a whole hell of a lot more of it. So what we saw is that roughly a third of our respondents had never facilitated in a virtual field trip before. And that number they expect to go down to roughly 7% in the coming school year. And the number of schools that are going to take, or the number of teachers that plan on deploying virtual field trips in the coming year, at a frequency of 3 or more, is going to go from 10% to over 40%, almost a 4x growth. And that when you take the number of schools that are going to take more than one virtual field trip this year, it's more than 3/4 of all of the teachers that we surveyed. So the vast majority of teachers recognize that the world is going to look radically different in the future, and that in order to facilitate some level of resource immersion, in order to put those teachers in front of your experts, they are going to have to engage in virtual field trips. And that means that you have a huge demand coming your way. And if that you can be prepared to meet that demand, you are going to do a really wonderful job of meeting the needs of your community and fulfilling a portion of your institutional mandate through a virtual field trip. When thinking about how to meet the need of this virtual field trip, we then said, okay, if 75% of the market is going to take more than one virtual field trip this year, how do these educators value different component pieces of what definitionally they think of as a virtual field trip? Because what we've seen is there are a lot of products out there in the market for virtual field trip. And we wanted to know what of those component pieces they wanted to see in your offerings for the coming year. And so we asked them to rank choice 7 major component pieces, 10 major component pieces, of which the 6 most valuable are present here. The most valuable educational resource for a virtual field trip that teachers want is augmented and virtual reality. The reason is because if they can't physically get into your institution, they want to provide a facsimile of achieving resource immersion, either in your physical space, in your concept, engaging with objects in augmented reality, 3D objects. They want to be in your environment as close as possible. Secondly, they want real-time video conference. Not surprising. They want video conference because, again, it's not just about putting them inside of your environment. They want your educators, your experts, and your docents to facilitate that conversation in a way that your expertise allows, that these teachers, generally speaking, are not equipped to do. There is a question, by the way, that we just got as to whether this data is public or shareable, or whether we're going to share a link to the data so that they can share it with their funders. We are happy to provide this data to you. It will be made available to Zinnia, and we will also post this webinar on our website at the end. So don't worry about trying to track down all the data. We're also going to take a video of this and post it on YouTube so you can revisit. So just focus on trying to process the information, and then we will make sure that by tomorrow, all of these resources are available on our website, because we do know that many of you are tracking down funding for this. I know the Ford Foundation has a big push to facilitate digital field trips this fall, etc. So Zinnia will post all of this information for all of you. Sorry, I should have said that earlier. All right, so real-time video conferencing and AR/VR are the two most valued component pieces. And by the way, I should have said AR/VR is the most valued first choice as well. But also teachers value web-based resources. So then that way they can take your 30 or 40-minute virtual field trip and pair that with the resources that you have, both on the front or the back end of that virtual field trip, to also package it with homework, a lesson plan that they're developing the day before or the day after. I was really surprised to learn that learning plans are relatively devalued and that alignment with standards are at a far distant sixth place. One of the hypotheses that we had, that we expected learning alignment with standards to be much higher on, is that many of your educational institutional partners require approval from their district to take field trips. And that we thought that if this field trip was a continuation, that it would be easier for them to get funding. But what we actually heard from the teachers is, in this kind of environment, it just doesn't matter. Don't go through the effort of trying to get approval of the county or the state for the virtual field trips for the most part. Don't worry about aligning the educational objectives of your virtual field trip to state, local, or Common Core standards. They just don't value it. What they really want is interactive content and interactive engagement with your educators. If you focus on those two things, then you're going to be very well positioned to meet the needs of the market. Now, not surprisingly, what we also wanted to do was measure how these features that they value line up against what you're prepared to offer for this fall. And it's not surprising to see that web-based resources and real-time video conference, there's pretty good alignment in terms of what it is that SEMC membership is prepared to offer relative to what it is that teachers are valuing. And so what we are seeing is that the AR/VR component is a huge drop-off because of the perceived challenge in developing quickly that kind of resource, both in terms of financial commitment, time commitment, technological sophistication of our institutional partners. Also not surprised to see that you're overweighted towards learning plans. So if your resources are really strapped, I would definitely recommend, based upon the data, that you over-index towards aggregating web-based resources and preparing for real-time video chat by facilitating time-based sessions with these schools, and deprioritize the development of learning plans if they haven't already been developed. And then, of course, if you have the ability to develop AR/VR, that's going to make your program much more compelling. And of course, we're also happy to talk about what we're going to talk about in a little bit about how TimeLooper specifically might be able to help you on that AR/VR component. So then we said to our student community, to our educator community, how many of you are going to go about, or how many of you have a willingness to pay? And we expected there to be a very low willingness to pay. But we also know through our engagement with your membership and our conversations with Zinnia and the preparations for the SEMC conference this fall, most of you, many of your institutions are under a huge financial pressure. And so we asked you if you were preparing to charge for your virtual field trips this fall. What we see is that only a third of the market shows no willingness to pay. Put another way, fully 2/3 of the market are willing to pay for these virtual field trips. And the sweet spot for these virtual field trips is about $50. And that, depending upon the nature of your site, whether it's an iconic site or it's more one that tends to get more local interest, a full 10 to 15% of the market's even willing to pay more than $100. So if you're looking for ways to generate revenue this fall, and you're even willing to segment between those portions of your customer base that can pay and those that can't pay, you're going to find fully 2/3 of the market are willing to pay on average $50, with the median being a little bit higher and the mode being a little bit lower. So there really is the opportunity to charge. And if you think that, a third of the market is unable to charge, you would have expected roughly a third of the SEMC community to not be charging. But we actually see that SEMC membership is orienting towards charging this fall. So, my not making a judgment on whether that's a good decision or a bad decision, what I am telling you is that the market is willing to pay. The vast majority of the market is willing to pay for a virtual field trip, on average $50 for about a 30-minute virtual field trip. So we also did provide our teachers, the 120 teachers that did respond to this, the opportunity to give us their insights in written format. And basically what they all said in three different, through these three comments, which are very representative, is it's got to be immersive, it's got to be engaging, and it's got to be interactive. Those are the three words: engaging, immersive, interactive. Engaging, immersive, interactive, right? They want their students at home in their classroom to be able to facilitate a facsimile experience that's really representative of an on-site field trip. They don't want their students to get access to a bunch of videos and PDF documents. That's something that these students already do all day. They're looking for more than that. So, in summary, teachers want your institutions, to facilitate meetings with your institutional experts over video conference. They want your institution to immerse their students in immersive and engaging AR/VR content, and they want you to provide access to resources that the teachers can utilize in their own context before or after the facilitated video conference that you should be providing. Again, they value less alignment with resources, with state and local and Common Core standards, and they value less lesson plans. So, how are we going to build this, right? Zinnia was very helpful to nag me with a gentle prod and say, actually, school goes back August 3rd, which helps explain why a third of you were in full-blown panic mode on that question of how prepared are you, and a third of you said we're in full-blown panic. There is one question here. One question from Michelle was, she's very curious where teachers who replied are located: urban, inner city, rural, so-called failing schools, or wealthy private schools. The teachers in our district would have very different responses. So that's a great question. These were predominantly public schools. I think it was roughly 2/3 public, 1/3 private, and it was representative of geographic distribution all over the United States. I can't say, Michelle, that it was it was not, it was under indexed in very heavily urban environments. The majority of the teachers who responded tended to be in typically suburban, exurban communities. Now, that being said, every district is unique, and that I can't specifically align the responses from these teachers relative to your particular institution. If you contact me after the webinar and you're really interested, I can try to suss out some of the survey data that most closely aligns with an educational district like yours. But of course, the caveat emptor to all of this, Michelle, is that you know your district far better than we do, and that this is aggregate data that's representative of what we're generally seeing. So you have to take what we're saying with a grain of salt. So that being said, if this is what teachers want, how are you going to build your virtual field trip, right? So there are a couple of different ways to think about those core components that teachers are valuing, right? So you have to think about both how you're gonna, the content that you're gonna build and the way that you're, or deploy, and the way that you're gonna distribute it. So for video conference, just like with this, you need to think about how to translate what it is that you present in a in-person environment into a video conference environment. It's a different medium. You might need to develop a presentation that's a little bit more PowerPoint oriented. Whatever it is, you're going to have to create some level of presentation material that's better suited to a Zoom-based video conference, for example. When it comes to the AR, VR content, it doesn't have to be Star Wars. You don't need R2-D2 inside of the classroom or inside of these students' homes. 3D pictures, 3D videos of your environment are a great way to start. If you have a DSLR camera and you can take lots of pictures of a historic artifact or of a rock, if it's a natural park and the topic is geology, then you can upload these to free websites to create photogrammetry 3D models. It's not difficult to get this AR, VR content started, especially in this environment where you know that students are going to be on distance-based engagement at least for the coming year. It's a really great investment of your time to start very simply with these basic immersive content components that you might have not developed before. And then, of course, as it comes to resource packages, leverage your existing materials. Whatever it is that you give to teachers now, maybe you need to modify it, but you don't need to start from whole cloth because you already have existing field trips. What we've heard from all of you is that you're so concerned about this because you have a community that you already serve. If that's your starting point, then you've already got a great resource package that you can build off of. Then you can also actually think more expansively. If you're a historic site that touches on a component piece of the American Revolution, now that it's a completely virtual field trip, in your resource package, you can provide links to third-party websites that relate either directly or tangentially to your on-site experience. So for example, if you have a historic site that was the scene of the Battle of Yorktown, for example, then you can link to the National Archives and the digital copy of the US Constitution, and then integrate the copy of, the Declaration of Independence, and then integrate in the Declaration of Independence link and the National Archives link relative to that which you're providing, which is a uniquely distinct experience. But the key is aggregate it all in one place and make it easy for the teacher. A question that we have is, for those of us with a very small budget, I'm wondering if you have recommendations for equipment needed to create online field trips and resources. Yes. For those of you who actually want to create VR content, go get a GoPro, right? Go get a Insta360X. These are cameras that cost less than $400 or $500, right? And if you can go get a grant or one of your funders to pay for it, or even put out a call to action on social media to ask one of your members or ask people in your community, these pieces of hardware have proliferated like crazy. And for sure, there are people out there in your community, if you don't want to spend those resources, who are able to provide them to you in kind, and they can help you spend a day capturing these photos or videos of your interpreters across your site. Then as it comes to the the distribution platforms. So this is where things get a little bit tricky. So for those of you that are a state park or a national park, you might be limited by the platform that you're able to use. You might only be able to use Microsoft Teams. However, you need to try to be flexible, because the easiest way to get into these school districts is to utilize the platforms that they use. So, it might be that Mecklenburg County is on the Microsoft platform, whereas, Atlanta or DeKalb County schools are on Google Hangouts. And then Pensacola schools are on Skype in the Classroom. If you can meet these students where they are and participate on their platforms, it dramatically lowers friction points, right? Just say to the teachers, whatever your platform is, I'm willing to meet you there. If you really can't, then what it does is it makes it challenging, especially if the students are at home, for all of these students to then download another app onto their home-based hardware, and that provides security concerns for the district. Then of course, here's a question that just came in. Distribution platforms. Can you discuss synchronous versus asynchronous? If I'm understanding correctly, the channels we list here are all synchronous. That's correct. So when we're talking about synchronous, we're talking about live facilitation for these video-based platforms. If you're not going to be making video conferencing available, if it's just off the table because you don't even have an educator, the backup alternative to that would be for you to create YouTube clips, I guess, where you facilitate one-way dialogue. But really, the schools and the teachers are looking at a two-pronged approach to heavily oriented resource immersion and heavily oriented facilitated dialogue. So to the extent that you can facilitate real-time dialogue through what this attendee is asking as synchronous sort of facilitation, Zoom, Skype, Hangout, Microsoft Teams, these platforms are going to provide a tremendous amount of value for your schools. And then of course you have booking tools, right? So you need to think about, if you have schools in your community and that's your principal point of service, you might be able to get away with facilitating this stuff over email. But if you've got hundreds of schools and you're opening up virtual field trips to all of them at once, having some sort of automated booking platform where they can just log on, see your availability, and then automatically schedules. And then if you charge, it facilitates automatic payment to PayPal or Stripe or whatever that is. That's going to be hugely valuable to them and save you a tremendous amount of time. Additionally, access to content, whether you're putting it in a Google Drive with a public link, or whether you're sending a PDF, whatever it is, you need to think through how you're going to distribute all of these resources. And so, how are you going to build all of this in the next 30 days, the next 45 days? It's not necessarily impossible for you to do by yourself. If that's something that you want to do and you're able to do it, these are the guidelines that we have. And this is what we would definitely recommend that you do as terms of the core component pieces. However, if you are thinking that you want like a turnkey solution, then we are also offering our virtual field trip platform, which basically provides all of this at once, right? So our goal is to provide all of you, and we've basically built this overnight. Our goal has been to provide all of you with a single distribution platform to stand up a virtual field trip in a matter of weeks. And we think about a distribution platform for video conference, for your resource packages, and AR, VR that are all seamlessly integrated and that all also provide as a platform for these different kinds of educational content. Once you have the platform and these sort of operational tools in place to facilitate the distribution of all of these resources, it's then really easy for the museums and the schools to sort of manage all of this together in one different place. So what this looks like for your institutional, for your schools is something like this, right? So the value component pieces that we offer, through this virtual field trip platform are the ability to seamlessly and quickly develop AR, VR, real-time video chat with all of you, and then to utilize, to help facilitate distribution of your resource packages. The other benefit that this has is not only are you then engaging with your local community, but through all of TimeLooper's broad marketing, other institutions, other schools around the country are going to be able to get access to your institution and to participate in virtual field trips because now they don't have to be there in person. So for example, 16th Street Baptist Church in downtown Birmingham, their mission is that love forgives. And now is the time for the 16th Street Baptist Church, more than ever, to disseminate the mission, to disseminate the mission and the lesson of reconciliation and mutual understanding. They want to facilitate that message far beyond the local community of Birmingham. So with this platform, they're now able to reach out to students all across the country. You have that same opportunity. Virtual field trips, yes, enable you to meet the immediate need of your local community, but it also enables you to more broadly expand your base of engagement to those schools across the country that are looking for relevant content that either they would love to meet with you on the one hand, or is not being met by their local institution and can be met by yours. So to the extent that your museum, your historic site, your natural park are not heavily tied up in place-based interpretation that's only relevant to the local community, you actually now have an opportunity to disseminate your message across the country. So we've designed this virtual AR platform, this AR VR field trip, to be the kind of thing that you can deploy in 2 weeks at no cost, right? So what we want is for students and teachers to be able to literally walk through your interpretive environment, whether it's your park or an interpretive experience of your museum institution. And then you have the ability to deploy your resource packages inside of these virtual environments, as well as standalone resource packages with links through PDF and websites. And not only do you have the ability to build and deploy these virtual field trips, but they can be seamlessly integrated into this virtual sort of environment. So I bring this up because this sort of triumvirate, this triangle, is a distinction without meaning to TimeLooper, because we think what's most compelling is when you as an institution can pull real-time interpretation with immersive environment and resource immersion and resource packages and primary and secondary sources into one environment, and you can do it all in real time based on Zoom, Skype, Google Hangouts, and Microsoft Teams. And if you can do it in an integrated environment, but also offer it in a disaggregated environment, then you're meeting all of the needs of your partner institutions, and you're making the best use of your resources by providing them through multiple mediums and allowing teachers to deploy them in multiple contexts. So I'm now gonna pass it off to my colleague Yeet, who's gonna walk you through what this might look like as if he was an educational, as if he was giving a virtual field trip and all of you were students or teachers participating remotely.
Thank you. So I connected my iPhone to my laptop. This could have been my tablet too. And I'm going to share my screen and show a few examples. And as I'm showing those examples, also I'm going to address to some questions like I have spot the Wi-Fi, how much is the cost of producing the equipment cost. All right, so first let me share my screen. Okay, so all these apps that you see on my screen are live apps right now, the clients that are using. So I'm going to show you live experiences from our clients. So the first one that I'm going to show you is Yosemite. So Yosemite is in client review. It's not in the App Store. So what I do is I clicked and then I launched. So every content, all these apps for classroom usage starts with a message.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Yosemite. During these unprecedented times, many of us are unable to visit the parks that we love. So we at the Yosemite Conservancy decided to bring Yosemite to you.
And what I do next is I scan the floor of my living room and then tap and start. So as you can see, I'm in my living room, and right now the 3D map of Yosemite Park, National Park, is in my living room. So what I can do is I can walk around and then explore the park. And all of these pins are information about these different locations on the park. Now, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to dive into Yosemite Valley. What I do is I'm walking towards it and then bumping my phone. And then here we go. So now we zoomed in a section of Yosemite Park, Yosemite Valley. So I'm going to rotate it and make it bigger so that I can actually walk inside the valley. So down. So as you can see right now, I'm walking inside the valley in my living room. These students can do the same thing inside their classrooms. And then now let's go up and look at the different content type. So let's go to Yosemite Grant. So now I'm going to click this. As you can see, now I'm going to silent again. This is a 2D video. So what you are seeing here is augmented reality map. It's highly interactive. This is what teachers are asking for their students. But the content that the Yosemite Conservancy provided us is a regular 2D video. Let's go and try another one. Let's go Bridal Falls. Now, this is a 360 picture taken from that location. And there's a voiceover on this one. Versus if we go back on the main map and then check out another type of content. Let's do, again, audio so that you can hear. Let's go to this point right now. So
at an elevation of 8,619 feet, Tuolumne Meadows offers cool temperatures during hot summer days.
And then it is talking about this point in their park. So as you can see here, you don't even have to buy a virtual reality camera, 360 camera. You can just start with your existing content. And we can plug into those content, 2D videos, pictures onto your platform. Now I would like to show you another example from a museum. It's not a map, it's not a GSI data. It's Buffalo Soldiers Museum. You find it, here it is. This one has no 360 video or picture.
Trooper! Tyrell D. Biggs! K-Troop! 10th Cavalry! U.S. Army! Reporting for duty! And our mission today.
So now that soldier is giving a tour inside the museum. And then it's talking about the Buffalo soldiers of that period. And then here you can see we just used a historic map of United States. And then each of these points of interest are actually from different sections of their museum. So let's look at this one, for example.
One of the more interesting Buffalo soldiers is this one right here. William Caffey. Only his real name was...
So as you can see, when you're thinking about your museum, it doesn't
Caffey
have
Williams
to be
was the
walking
only
inside your museum.
woman.
You can video capture at different points and then think about what would be the right context to provide that content, because your four walls are not important. But in this case, the map is very important. And then a last example, just to help you to imagine different experiences, is from Bethel Church Museum, Bethel Baptist Church. You can even only use pictures to tell your story in a more traditional display setting. As you can see, these are displays. Now in my living room, imagine students are doing this, or I'm from the church and I'm telling the story of all these, and it's a great presentation tool. And I'm walking through the kids and then activating content and then teaching them more. So again, for the Wi-Fi, if you have one good Wi-Fi spot in one location, you can do this webinar from that location. Maybe you can connect your phone and do it from your phone. And you don't necessarily need to start with a 360 content. Your existing content would be sufficient to start the program.
Thank you, Yeet. And so, Willard, just to flush out your question a little bit more, you can build this program, and then you don't even need to leverage the Wi-Fi in your facility, because you can do the you can have your interpreters or your educators to facilitate the virtual field trip from their home or anywhere where they have good Wi-Fi. So we have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. And so the next thing I want to do is just really reinforce how simple it is to build this in just a couple of weeks. So we basically work with you to select your 3D hologram display. Then you provide us with your existing interpretive content, whether it's a slideshow, a 2D video. If you have a interpretive video that's inside of your museum that's 12 minutes long, you could take 45 seconds of it and then deploy it as a point of interest inside of your virtual field trip. Or maybe it's just audio files, and then we upload all of that into the app, and then you can make the app only available to your team to facilitate inside of these virtual field trips like he did. You can also make it available as a resource for the teachers to deploy with their students, both before or after the virtual field trip. And then in a matter of weeks, you're up and running. So then, of course, beyond that, it's your resource packages. So you need to think about, are you going to create different resources? I mean, I would actually contend that all of the resources that you would deploy with a resource package are exactly the kinds of resources you would also want to deploy inside of your virtual environment. And you can make them available through two different formats. Sometimes for the students, it's more impressive and consuming and immersive to do it inside of an augmented reality environment, but also having them available if they're long form primary sources or text or anything like that are the kinds of thing that you would better provide over email or whatever. One question that we have, okay, good, Yeet, you just answered a question over chat. How easy is it to update the content? It's very easy. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, people can search for and find your virtual field trips from all over the country. They can sort for them and then find them. And then once they've found it, they can learn more about it. And then right from this platform, you have the ability to help, to schedule all your virtual conference sessions, select the VC channel that is available to these institutions, confirmation emails, uploading all of your AR, VR content, facilitating platform access. And then, of course, if you're charging, one-click payment. So all of this, is all of these different resources are the kinds of things that, when aggregated together, provide for a very compelling resource for all of your potential customers, your educational institutions. And we're providing it to all of our SEMC partners for free for this fall. So if you think that this is the kind of thing that you might want to do, we're happy to help you build your AR, VR content. We're happy to help you launch your booking system, build your dedicated virtual field trip page. We work with interpreters from the National Association of Interpretation who specialize in digital distance-based interpretation. So if you want a free 30-minute session on how to convert your museum-based interpretation to a digital-based environment and engage people, we're offering that in collaboration with our NAI partners at no charge to you. These are all the different kinds of things that we're just trying to do to help you all become more prepared for the fall. And then if you determine that it's the kind of thing that you don't see any value in at the end of the year, okay, then go your own way. Alternatively, we also have partners who say, we'll never be able to pay that. Well, then we work with our partners to provide discounts, to go after grants,
to do whatever needs to get done. We're most concerned with helping you get access to this kind of platform, you know, to ensure that this transition for you in these uncertain times is as seamless as possible. So with that, we're happy to take any additional questions that come up in the Q&A bar. And then it's as simple as emailing us if you think that you want to explore this further. So that way we can help you get started by August 3rd. Alternatively, we also have options for you to be able to just ask us questions. So if you are trying to build a virtual field trip and you have uncertainties, but you want to go about it alone, then that's absolutely fine. Just please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. So if any of you don't have any questions, we'll be happy to wait around until noon, so that way we finish on time.
Andrew, I see one question in the chat, thoughts on providing hands-on items as part of the resource package?
Yeah, so teachers heavily value hands-on resources for inside of the classroom. If you can do that, that's great. It's a little bit, depends upon what you mean with hands-on items. That can be a little bit less scalable. So if you're actually talking about like taking resources from your museum and mailing them out, then that's the kind of thing that you can do in ones and twos. But if you're facilitating 5 virtual field trips a day, 5 days a week, that's going to be a little bit difficult to offer at scale. What is the best length of time for a virtual field trip? Yeet, do you want to talk about that?
Yes. So you can think about it as a class duration. The most common duration that we see in the market is around 30 minutes, because the class is around 45 to 50 minutes, and there's students coming in, settling up, and then the virtual field trip starts. But it's usually 30 to 45 minutes. And then you should definitely make it very interactive and conversational, which means that your presentation shouldn't be the full time of 30 minutes and 45 minutes. Leave room, ask questions, either leave question Q&A at the end for 5, 10 minutes, because that's the part the teachers and students value the most. They want to speak with you. The other question is, what equipment do schools need? The schools need for the virtual video conference. They don't need anything. All they need is a projector, and then connect to Zoom, Skype in Classroom, whichever platform their school is using. If they want to use also the VR AR inside the classroom, they need at least one iPhone, iPad, or an Android device. And then that Android device needs to have certain components. Some of the Android devices don't support these kind of experiences, but one device is sufficient. That one device can be connected to the projector, and then one student or the teacher can explore while the other kids are looking at it for the projector. And also they can do it station-based, which it's also a very common practice. They break into the groups, and then in one station, there are 1 or 2 devices where kids play, just like in one of the pictures that we showed. And then maybe if Andrew can play the video and you can see, while the other kids are using the other type of resources.
So one question also that we got from somebody was the concern about the price point. And what I answered, and what I want to reiterate to all of you, is that TimeLooper has never had a partner who wants to utilize the platform who cannot afford it and therefore does not have access to it. We work with every single partner to ensure that your institution can have access to all of our resources, regardless of your ability to pay. That is a firm commitment that TimeLooper makes to every partner. So that means that if in January you can't pay $400, well, okay, then we would like to work with you, hopefully, for you to go apply for a grant. But even if you don't get the grant, we don't pull the program. If you see value in the program, you're using the program, it's meeting the needs of your community, then TimeLooper is absolutely committed to working with you to ensure continuity of access to all of these resources. In times like the ones that we're in now, everybody has to be willing to give a little,
And what we're willing to do is to provide all of this to our partners, regardless of their resources, to ensure they're able to meet their mandate and to make sure that they're able to serve their community. So I just want to be abundantly clear about that. One of the questions that we have is, can you send a list of some of the sites that use your program? We'd like to share it with our executive director. So the website virtualfieldtrip.com launches August 1st. In advance of August 1st, what you can do is go to timelooper.com/explore, which I will show you here. And these are all of the partners who have already developed their AR VR content that will be live with virtualfieldtrip.com as of August 1st. So we have national parks, we've got UNESCO heritage sites, we have local community-based churches, we have local state parks and community parks. All of these are the partners that already have their content developed. There are about another 30 that are in development that will be live very shortly thereafter. Any other questions? Not even about the TimeLooper Explorer program, but questions about, or virtual field trip. Any questions about building your own virtual field trip? Anything about insights that we gathered from the community? Any questions about your unique circumstances? We're more than happy to answer them. Okay.
I just want to say thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Andrew and Yeet and Nick, for doing this on behalf of SEMC, for providing this really informative, timely program and content, and for your willingness to work with our regional museums and make sure that this type of technology is accessible and budget friendly. We all very much appreciate that. So thank you for your time today, all of you.
And again, please feel free to reach out with us with any questions. If you have questions about, what product to use or what platform to use, if you're going to go about trying to pull this stuff together yourselves, we've failed forward with a lot of these different products, and we're happy to help you think through it. So just send us emails as these questions arise.
And we'll make sure that all of this information from today is that you receive it after the program as well.
Absolutely. All right.
All
We
right.
finished right on time.
Okay, everybody have a great day. We have another SEMC program today at 3.
Thank you.
If you're still there.
Take care.
Bye.